This is Office Talk with Annette Stepanian. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Office Talk. I think you're going to love this episode. At least if you are a productivity nerd like me, then this is the episode for you. I'm talking to Tonya Dalton, who is the owner of Inkwell Press, and we're talking about how we can structure our days and our lives in a way where we're reducing the overwhelm, but also increasing our satisfaction and our joy. And this is stuff I could seriously talk to her about for hours, and I'm hoping you'll enjoy it and you'll get a nugget or two that you can start implementing in your lives, especially as we're entering a new year and it's a time of reflection and it's a time of resetting our goals and our intentions for the coming year. Now, with that said, let's go to the show. Well, welcome, Tonya, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I love talking to you. You get my brain firing on all cylinders because you are all about productivity and being organized. And that is basically, it just speaks right to my soul. So let's bring the listeners up to speed on who you are and what you do.
Of course. So my name is, of course, Tonya Dalton, and I'm the owner of Inkwell Press. But I'm more than just the owner of a storefront or, planner company. I am a wife. I'm a mother. I'm 1,000 different roles. And I think that's what really gets me so fired up and excited about productivity and teaching people about productivity is we do have so many roles in our lives that we need to make sure that we're playing all those roles. And there's not one that's getting more attention than the others, because I think all of those roles are really important and really part of making us feel fulfilled.
Oh my gosh, yes. Sign me up for all of that because I feel that way too, right? Like, I just feel like for most women especially, you have this here's this personal role that you play, and within that, you might be a wife, a mom, a girlfriend, whatever, friends, and then you have your professional side, and it feels like they're both competing with one another. So you might be kicking butt, in the professional world, but then feeling like a total mess and disaster in the personal. Like, I know for me, I'm not really great about keeping in touch with friends sometimes and things like that. And so you never feel like you're never complacent because you're always feeling the lack, right? Like, yeah. I'm not doing enough.
Absolutely. And I think that part of the reason why people feel that way a lot of times is they hear the term balance a lot. They hear balance. You need to have a work-life balance. You need to have a balanced life. And honestly, we don't really want balance. We need imbalance in order to move forward in any direction in our life. You have to have a little bit of a counterbalance, right?
Absolutely.
Just like when you're riding a bike, you want balance. So you're on the road, but as you're turning, you have to shift your weight. So there are times where you do spend more time in one role than you do in another role. And that's really where harmony comes in. So I like to talk about harmony more than I like to talk about balance, because balance makes it sound like everything has to be even. Everything is equal. All three sides of us, the work, the personal, and the home life, all need to be equal. And to me, it's okay that sometimes these roles get a little more attention. Sometimes your personal goals need a little more attention than your work goals. Sometimes your home goals need a little more attention than your personal goals. And so it shifts. And that is what helps create harmony in your life. We get so caught up in this idea of balance that we have to spend the right amount of time being a wife, the right amount of time being a mother or a business person or a friend and all these things. And it's okay that those aren't always equal. It's all about finding the harmony that is designed for you, the harmony that you want in your own life.
And let's talk about that. How do you go about designing that harmony for yourself? Because I'm the type of person that because that's what I grew up seeing was just work all the time, right? Uh-huh. So I will eat up a weekend just working. I know I did that when I was at the law firm. I mean, totally self-imposed. I would go in every weekend at Starbucks and work all day. And it was, it wasn't like my boss was telling me to work. I was like, I'm just going to work. So how do you begin designing that harmony? Because it can be hard, especially for those workaholics out there, or maybe it's the reverse. Maybe you're spending too much time in certain areas and it's throwing off the harmony. So what are some questions people can ask themselves to start creating that harmony in their lives, whatever that looks like for them?
Yeah. And that's the thing is, I love what you said there, what that looks like for them, because I feel like Harmony for each person is different. It's unique. So I talk a lot about the productivity paradox, which is the name of my podcast. And the reason why I think there's this productivity paradox is because there are these productivity systems that these gurus talk about. And they expect for you to see the system and you work your life around that system. Like it's in the middle and you somehow bend and twist your life so it works for the system. And in my opinion, it's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite in that your life needs to be the center. What are your priorities? What is your purpose? What is your passion? And then revolve those systems around that. So that becomes the core. So to me, part of that journey of finding your harmony is really starting with that core of you. What is it that is truly important to you? And I think a really easy way to start that off is to think about and reflect back over the past 12 months. I always start any type of exercise where I'm goal setting or I'm, doing some future planning or I'm looking forward to what I want to do. I always start with reflection because I think reflection is it's such a great way to really understand what your priorities are. Because if you look back at the past 12 months and you think about the things that went well and the things you enjoyed, that gives you a little bit of perspective, right? You start to see like, oh, I really enjoyed this project and I felt like I wanted more of this. But to me, it's not just looking back at what was so great in the last 12 months. To me, where you really find the heart of your priorities is what you feel did not go well. Because generally what tends to happen is your priorities get neglected. Because we say yes, 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 yes to all these other things, we're generally saying no to something else. And that no we're saying it to is generally our priorities. So when you look back at the last 12 months and you reflect back on what experience did I have that I do not want to repeat, or what were the things I was not happy about this year, those are generally the heart of your priorities. Because you look back and you think, wow, I really wish I'd spent more time on X. I really wish that I had poured more energy into this project. And that helps you really to hone in. It's kind of that opposite perspective of looking at what did not go well, because those are the things that are still nagging at you and bothering you because those are your priorities. So I think that's really such a great way to start is by looking at that, looking at the good, looking at the bad, and then really looking at the ugly. I mean, pulling back the bandages, looking at the old wounds that maybe you don't even want to talk about and figuring out, how do I heal these? How do I move forward so that I don't have these wounds in the future? How do I move forward so I don't have these regrets 12 months from now? And I think that's really a great place to start because for everyone, that core of what you want is different.
And you have to also recognize that core can change and it evolves, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Think about who you were 5 years ago. You're totally different, I'm sure, than who you are today.
I had fewer gray hairs for sure.
Well, that's true for all of us, I think. You'll feel fewer wrinkles. But you also had fewer life experiences. And you had fewer opportunities that you had lived through. And so there's so much wisdom that we gain and our perspective changed. Think about just, on the surface level, think about how your fashion has changed in the past 10 years. So if your fashion has changed, right, the things that you're wearing on a daily basis,
yeah,
why wouldn't your priorities change? And why wouldn't you as a person continue to grow and evolve? We change roles throughout our lives. We're not always the same people. Before I had kids, I was, a wife, I was a teacher, I was all these other things, but I wasn't a mother. Then when I became a mother, that perspective changed because I added a new role into my life. And as my kids have grown up, that role has continued to evolve and grow. And I think that's why it's really important to look at things like your priorities and your purpose and the things that you're really passionate about. I think you have to look at that each year at least, or every 6 months, because you need to take the time to really acknowledge that you're continuing to grow, you're continuing to learn, and that's an amazing, wonderful thing and something that should definitely be celebrated. But that means that your goals change, and that means that the things that you really want to work on change. I think that's great.
And I think it's something funny happened after we all graduated from school. I talked to my best friend about this. Is like, school was so great in some ways because it gave you structure, but you saw progress, right? Like every semester you got so many credits and you were working towards something, because it was kind of like this default tracking system where you knew like, okay, I'm accomplishing. And I think what happens is when I left school and I graduated, I went to the working world, there was no way to track progress. In some ways, like that you're accomplishing or changing. There was no measurement. It kind of feels like this abyss, like you're just kind of existing day to day, doing all these things. And like time goes by so fast. I mean, I can't believe, we're recording this at the end of October, and I was like, it was just the beginning of October. And I think that's one thing that for me has felt a little like I'm just floating, because there is no tracking. So are you a big I have a feeling you like document a lot of things. Just the fact that like you like to look at 12 years back. I mean, some people don't document these things. Is that like a big part of your practice?
Yes, I really think so, because I think reflection is such an important part of any type of goal setting or any type of system. I think it's really important to do. It's the breadcrumbs that you leave behind that you can look back and you can see your trail. There's a lot to be said for that. I often say that we have what I like to call an imaginary marble jar in our head. So are you familiar with marble jars, like in an elementary school classroom? Yeah. So, for those people who don't know, I used to be a teacher, and what we would do is, the kids would do something really well. They get a marble in the jar. Oh, you guys were great during reading time, marble in the jar. And, oh, you lined up really nicely during the fire drill, marble in the jar. And when the marble jar fills up, there's some sort of reward, maybe a movie or extra recess or something like that. So I think that we all have these marble jars in our head, where it's this little imaginary marble jar, and we get up in the morning and we go, okay, I worked out today, marble in the jar. All right, I was able to accomplish 2 of the things I wanted to do today. Another marble in the jar, another marble in the jar. And throughout the day, you're adding all these marbles to your jar, all these little things. And then we go through our day, and let's say that we get home at the end of the day and we realize, oh gosh, I totally forgot to get the groceries for dinner. So instead of saying, well, boy, I screwed that up, no marble in my jar. Instead, what we do is we take that marble jar in our head and we smash it against the wall. And there's glass and there's marbles everywhere. It's a mess. And suddenly we no longer see all those marbles because they're scattered everywhere. All we see is the shattered jar, and we focus in on what was the one thing in our day that we did wrong. We might have done 20 things right, 20 things brilliantly throughout the day, but all of that no longer counts because we smashed our marble jar. So I think it's so important to make sure you're always tracking and make sure that you're keeping your marbles in the jar where you can see them, because it's so important to see that progress. To me, I feel like far too many people let their head hit the pillow at the end of the day feeling unsuccessful, unsatisfied, and just unhappy with what they've gotten accomplished. So we have to change that. One of the things that I really believe in is I do a daily download at the end of the day. I believe in it so strongly, I even have a notepad that walks you through it. You don't have to have the notepad, but it's basically a 5-minute process so that you can see your breadcrumbs. I'm happy to walk you through what that looks like. Okay. So during the first minute, what I think is important is you write down your accomplishments and you write down the things that you did that day. And people say, why do you need to write down what you did? Well, all your marbles are all over the floor, right? Take 1 minute to write down the things you did. You'll be surprised at how much you actually got accomplished. So you look at that list and you think, wow, I got quite a bit done, right? And so that gives you a little bit of a boost at the end of the day. Then you spend a minute assessing how you felt. How was your stress level? Did you put too much on your plate? Did I do things today that really helped move me forward? Then you write down one thing that you did to move you towards a goal or a priority. So let's say you're trying to be more healthy. You write down that you worked out. There you see yourself again making some progress. And then the 4th minute, I think it's important to write down 3 things you're grateful for, because that just sets our minds in a more positive mindset. And then the last minute of this 5-minute activity is really just doing a brain dump. What are the things I'd like to accomplish tomorrow? I'm not scheduling them into my planner. I'm not, figuring out, I'm going to do this at noon or I'm doing this at 3 o'clock. I just write them down so that way they are out of your mind. And by doing this exercise, you're able to reflect and look back over your day. You're able to look forward, and you're able to, most importantly, take the thinking out of it, so that when you're in home mode, when you're at home or you're ready to go to bed, those thoughts aren't swirling around in your head, stressing you out. That way, when you're spending time with your family, you're no longer stressing and worrying about, did I do enough today? Or what do I need to do tomorrow? So you really want to make it so it allows you to have a blank slate. So when you go home and you change from your work container to your home container, you feel a little more refreshed. And so I think that's really important.
There's so much I want to say right there. I love that exercise. And I think so many people who are listening work from home. And what happens is those like lines get crossed. Like you're like working and then like, let me throw in some laundry, and then you come back and then you never really are done, right? It's not like when you're going into an office, you leave the office and the work kind of stays at work. And so I think any type of ritual that you can create where it's like, I'm shutting down, like this is my shutdown ritual for the day. Like that's what, most people do at the office, right? Like before they leave, they kind of check their emails, they clean up their desk. Well, I don't know if most people do. At least that's what I used to do at the firm, right? So I think creating that kind of activity or that ritual for your mind to just start shutting down the work is super helpful. But I want to go back and say something. The whole thing about the marbles and like the progress. So I use Asana for my to-do list. And one thing is, it's like the to-do list never stops, right? It just keeps growing. It keeps growing. You have reoccurring tasks and things like that. And part of the thing is like, I realize is because I'm not seeing the completed tasks, because the view is just the to-dos that are left, right? The uncompleted tasks. So sometimes I like to go back and actually go into the view where I can see what I've completed, because you forget how much you've done. Or that's why I'm a big fan of, even though I have it on the computer, I still write it down because I love crossing stuff off my to-do list. It makes me feel so good. Have you ever like put something on your to-do list that you've already done and gone back just so you could cross it off and get that satisfaction?
I did used to do that, but now I know not to do that, to be honest with you.
Why? Oh, it feels so good.
I used to be a to-do list junkie. So I totally loved having to-do lists and crossing things off just like you. And the reason why we like crossing things off our to-do list is it does feel really good. There's actually a chemical called dopamine in our brains, and that little hit of dopamine happens when you cross something off your list. And that feels really good. But what that can do sometimes, if you're writing down things, especially that you've already done, is it's turning you into a little bit of a dopamine junkie, where you're like,
give me the dopamine.
Right? I want it all day long. And so what that ends up contributing to is putting a bunch of smaller things on your to-do list just to check them off. And really, one of the things that I'm, is part of my platform, you could say, is that I don't believe to-do lists work. I think what you said just a minute ago about to-do lists, they're never ending. They're always being added to. This is why to-do lists don't work. And I think a lot of people feel like, I make a to-do list every day, therefore I should be productive. Why don't I feel successful? Why don't I feel like I've gotten enough done? The reason is, I feel like you hit the nail right on the head when you said they're never ending. You're always adding to them. So what I like to do is, instead of a to-do list, I create a priority list. So nothing gets written down unless I've decided which level of my priorities it fits under. So I divide my priorities into 3 sections. So I have immediate, which are the tasks that are important and they're urgent. So these are important things that need to be done right away. Then I have important tasks. So these are the tasks that are important but don't necessarily have like a deadline that's looming right away. And to be honest with you, that's the section of your priority list you want to spend the most time in, but it's the part that gets the most neglected because it isn't a fire. It's not screaming out at you. And then the third level is your insignificant tasks, which are the ones that are not really that important, but they're urgent. So they're screaming out at you and they are demanding to be done. So I have immediate, important, and insignificant. So nothing makes it on my list unless I know which section it fits under. And then I start my day at the top of my list under immediate. And then I move to important, because then I'm getting my important things done. So even though those tasks in insignificant are urgent and need to be done, they're at the bottom of my list because they're unimportant. They are, by definition, insignificant. And that allows me to really focus in on my list. It keeps my list shorter because it's not as easy to add to. I have to really think through what I'm writing down. And it makes it so I know where to start. And I feel like so many people feel overwhelmed by everything they need to do each day. But overwhelm is not necessarily having too much to do. It's not knowing where to start. Because once you start, you already feel better. Like right away, you feel better when you start. So having a list that's done by priority allows you to really figure out where it is you want to start.
It's funny because I wrote down here doing important things first before you brought that up. And I'm so glad you dive into that because it's not about just being busy for busyness sakes, right? It's to actually do the important things. So how do you in your business determine what's important? Because you said they're not necessarily urgent things, right? So there might be kind of longer term projects or like kind of the working on the business stuff, I assume. How do you determine what's important? Like, what does that look like for you? If you don't mind sharing some of that.
Oh, no, that's absolutely fine. To me, it's the things that really keep my systems running because it's the things like working on the budget, right? Like maybe I don't have to have the budget turned in for a month, but if I'm working on the budget now, I'm able to give it the space it needs. I'm able to give it the attention it deserves. So I'm in a proactive state. And then it does not turn into the urgent task or I'm being reactive. So you really want to focus on those important tasks because you want to be proactive while you're working on them. You want to have the space and the time to do a really good job with them. So that's any sort of thing that really moves you forward. So it can be education. It could be, like I said, budgeting or finances, registering your trademarks,
reviewing your contracts. Yeah.
Reviewing your contracts, all of those things that really do move your business forward if we're talking about in business terms. And for your personal life, it's the things in your personal life that move you closer to your personal goals. So that's really my litmus test. When I'm creating something or I'm designing something or I'm deciding where it falls in my list, I really filter everything through my mission statement of what it is that I want to do in my lifetime. And that's how I decide if this is an important task or not. If it's not something that really moves me towards my goals, either with the business or with my personal life, then it's not an important task to me. Oftentimes, it's important to somebody else, but it's not necessarily important to me. So that's one of the ways that I filter through. That's how I decide what products I'm going to offer. It's how I decide what I'm going to work on, whether it's, am I going to launch a course? Am I going to have a new product? What is it I'm doing? You filter that through a mission statement or through your sense of purpose, and that really helps guide you as to whether something is really important to you or not.
That's so good. So good. You mentioned systems. Now, I know you're all about the systems, and it seriously kind of like gets me excited because I love a good system. Can you tell your story about the laundry? The laundry day. I love that story, just about how you've worked your kids through laundry day.
Through my laundry boot camp, so
yeah.
Well, so one of my favorite systems, honestly, and I think one of the easiest ones to implement is automations. So I talk a lot about you want to take the thinking out of it. And you want to take the thinking out of it, not because you don't want to be engaging your brain, but because you want to save your brain energy for the big important tasks. Not for tasks like, laundry, right? Like, that's not what I want to think about. I really want to think about what I'm going to do that's fun and exciting at work or what I'm going to do with my family. So automations make it so life runs a little bit easier because what happens is with something like laundry is that it piles up and we forget to do it. And then we stress. We're like, oh my gosh, I haven't done laundry in 2 weeks and I have no clothes, right? This is what happens. But if you set an automation, it makes it so that you don't have to think about it because it just happens automatically. So in my family, we have an automation that Tuesday is laundry day. So on Tuesdays, that's the day that my kids' laundry gets done. So when they were little, like little tinies, right now my kids are kind of big kids, but when they were really little, I would call up the stairs and I would say, it's Tuesday, it's laundry day. So they would come downstairs and they would I purposely bought hampers that they could drag themselves. They would drag their hampers downstairs and they would bring their laundry downstairs. And then when they got a little bit older, it became, okay, it's Tuesday, laundry day. And they would drag their laundry baskets down. And then I would stand over them as they sorted the laundry. Now, could I have sorted the laundry myself? Yeah, I could have done it a lot faster than what they did. But I was investing. I was investing that time in helping them figure out this system. So I would stand over them and they would divide up their clothes into darks or lights. And that worked great. And now it's, okay, Tuesday, it's laundry day. They bring their baskets down, they sort their laundry, and now they put in the first load of laundry. And what's great about it is with an automation, I don't even really have to remind them that it's Tuesday. They already know because this is an automation. Every Tuesday is laundry day. If your laundry is not downstairs, it's not going to get done. That's how it goes.
Yep.
So
I love this
now
story.
it's like this stepping up of the system, right? And I don't have to worry about whether the kids' laundry has been done because I know Tuesday is laundry day. I know that Tuesday will happen because it follows Monday. Tuesday has to happen, and therefore laundry will happen. And so I don't have to think about laundry. It gets done. So the follow-up to this is Tuesday is laundry day. Do you know what day my kids put away their clothes?
Wednesday?
Wednesday. That's right. It's not Tuesday. You got to give yourself a little bit of a cushion there because sometimes life happens and you don't have time to get all the laundry done. So laundry put away day is Wednesday. So that gives me a little bit of a cushion to make sure we get all the laundry done. So on Wednesday, my kids know that they bring their hangers downstairs and their laundry baskets are already down there. The laundry gets folded or put on hangers and it gets hung.
I love this.
Thursday happens to be room inspection day. So that's when I check to make sure the laundry actually hung.
Oh my God, you have room inspection day? Oh my God, I love this. Okay.
Yes.
What's Friday?
Friday is family pizza day. That's what Friday is.
I love it. I love it.
But this is the thing is when you start creating these automations and you start creating these systems, what is amazing is there's this domino effect where one thing knocks over the next, right? And each one gains more momentum. So I have laundry day, then there's laundry put away day, then there's room inspection day. Each one piggybacks off the other. And there's this constant momentum that helps push us forward. And I'm not stressed about all the things that need to happen at home because a lot of them are happening automatically without me having to think about it or stress about it. And that can make a huge difference when you're not stressing about your home life. That is huge when you're trying to focus on work because then you're really able to focus in on work when you're in that zone.
I was so inspired by this story that I came we met at a conference and you told a story and I came back, I instituted laundry day because we do laundry every day in our house. It's a little ridiculous. We're still working on the system. You know, we do laundry on Tuesday and on Saturdays and Saturdays we do sheets and towels, right?
Yep.
We're working on it, but I do love it because what it does is it sets that expectation. It kind of gets everybody on the same page. It removes the redundancy, allows you to batch. It allows you so many things, right? And now I have
so many things. I love what you said there about too. It allows other people to be a part of the system. So it's not just you doing everything, right? There are other people that you live with who can take part in this. And so now I've slowly given this over to my children so that I am not doing this anymore. Not nearly what I used to do.
Oh my God. I love it. And I think I speak on behalf of the future spouses and partners of your kids. They will thank you that you have raised such responsible children.
I mean, ultimately as a parent, isn't that our goal? My goal is that when my kids leave my nest, that they fly.
Yeah.
And so teaching them to be productive, giving them the tools so that they feel organized and they feel empowered with their planning and when they're doing projects, that to me is allowing my kids to fly as they get older.
I love that. Now with automation, so obviously that is a great example of, in your home life, but in business, is this kind of like just creating reoccurring tasks for yourself? Like how can somebody start thinking about how am I going to create automations in my business?
Yes, it is exactly like creating recurring tasks. So the same thing happens at our office that happens at home. We think all of a sudden one day, oh my gosh, I've not reconciled QuickBooks in 5 weeks, right? Oh, my sales tax are due or whatever it is. And then we freak out, we get stressed out, and then we're dealing with the urgency again that we talked about earlier. We want to avoid urgency. We want to try to get things done so they don't become fires. They don't start screaming out at us. So it's the same thing. So what you can do is you can look at at your business and think about what are the things I do on a regular basis. So for example, for us, let's talk about warehouse tasks for me. We have certain warehouse tasks that have to happen at certain times. So inventory has to happen. Quality control checks have to happen at a certain time. So we create an automation for that. So that way I know inventory is being done on a certain day because that day is when it's set for. So we take care of it and it no longer becomes a stress. But you can really, take these automations and you can really blow them out. So I feel like one that affects just about everyone with a business is social media. You can completely automate your social media. So instead of spending each day going, oh my gosh, I have to post something on social media, I haven't posted in 3 days, create an automation for that. Sit down and figure out what day works for you. So for us, we do marketing Mondays. So the first Monday of the month, we sit down and we talk about what is it that we want to talk about on social media. So we come up with our themes of what it is that we want to discuss.
Sorry to interrupt. Is that for that current month? So on October 1st, you're planning out October, or are you in October planning out November?
I'm planning out probably like a month ahead is what I like to do. I like to try to plan out a month ahead. So really for us, it's not the first Monday. It's really the second, or actually the third Monday of the month, because we're 2 weeks ahead of that next month. Does that make sense? So 2 weeks before November, we're planning November. So it's not too far in advance.
Okay.
So we sit down and we say, okay, we're going to figure out what our themes are. Then one of the automations is 2 days later, we need to have the captions written down, because to me, the captions come before the pictures, because to me, it's really about the message. So we write the message. Then on Thursday of that week, we figure out what are the pictures we want to put with each of these. Then on Friday, we schedule in what each one is going to be, right? Using our scheduler, like whether it's Hootsuite or use Planoly or one of those, we schedule that out. And now I don't have to worry about what are we posting on social media. I know it ties in with my mission because I've taken the time to write out all the captions. I know it's scheduled, so I'm not stressing about it. And now my life is easier. I'm not thinking about Instagram on Saturday night, laying in bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about it when I get the notification. So you can take these automations and really step them out. So you can see that one has several automations. One day is creating what the themes look like. The next, 2 days later is when the captions are due, and so on. So they can build, again, it's that same idea at home where we build the laundry off the putting away the clothes and the room inspections. We do the same thing at the office. So each one builds upon itself.
I think one thing that you do that's so great that I don't do is you divide it up. So whereas I will batch a certain task or attempt to batch a certain task, then it's you're so exhausted because you're oh my gosh, there's all of these pieces to whatever the project is. What you do is you actually divide up the project. And then you create automations for basically each part of that project.
Yes, which it makes them bite-sized and so much more manageable. I'm a big believer in breaking things down and making them really achievable so you feel successful.
So you get those marbles.
It's marbles, right? So I do that whether it's a big goal that I have. I create many deadlines and goals for myself, or whether it's something like social media. That way, on Monday, I've done what I need to do. I've done what's in my important quadrant. I can move on to the next task. I'm not bogging myself down and wearing myself out so that at the end of the day on Monday, I'm just worn out and so sick of social media, right?
Yeah.
So that's the benefit of breaking it down, is it makes it so I'm excited to work on it each time we're ready to work on it. I'm ready.
I think that's so important because some of these tasks in our business can feel like such a chore because it's a lot. And I like that you figured out how to design your systems and your automation and your day so that you're actually enthused about it, right? And you're it's time to write the captions for Instagram. Woohoo!
I'm excited to take the pictures out. Isn't that what life is really about? And isn't that why we own our own businesses? Because we want to be happy. We want to have that flexibility. We don't want to be beaten down by some of these tasks, but there's always going to be tasks that feel a little bit redundant or they feel not what I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
When you automate it, they become so much easier that it's no longer a big looming chore. It becomes something you can quickly take care of and move on to the next thing, the thing that maybe you really are looking forward to.
So how do you keep yourself so motivated and so excited? I mean, you kind of touched upon it earlier and just now, but how do you get yourself so excited about inventory, quality tech? Cause I think one thing is I think most of us can wrap our heads around like, let me create like, an important and, insignificant list, or let me create automations. But then once it's like on your task list or for the day or whatever, on your, I don't want to say to-do list because you don't like to-do lists, but on your priority list for the day, like, I think sometimes people lose motivation, when it's like they get so excited about the planning and creating the systems, but then they don't want to actually do it. Do you find that with people? And like, what kind of advice do you have to like push through kind of that lack of motivation? I don't even know what it is, but sometimes it's like the planning is more exciting than the doing for some people.
Well, and I think that's why it is so important that you make sure that you make them bite-sized and so that they're more easily managed, because then if it is a task that feels like you're a little bit, going through the swamp, so to speak, that you're going to get through it and there's something fun to do afterwards. So I try to make sure I do, like a technique, like a hammocking, where you have a fun task, so that's a really big high, and then you have kind of a task that I'm not excited about in the middle, and then you have the other end of the hammock, which is straight up, so you have another fun task. So you're peppering in the task you're really excited for, along with the tasks that you're not as excited for. And because they're all bite-sized, it adds a little bit of excitement and interest throughout your day.
I love that.
You're not getting really bogged down into it.
I love that. Have you heard about, I think her name is Mel Robbins with the 5-second rule. Have you ever heard that? We'll link it up in the show notes, but basically she has this theory that it takes about 5 seconds for your like brain to like catch up. So if you just count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and just do something, like your brain doesn't have time to like negotiate with yourself that, I don't want to do it, whatever, right? So let's say like you're in bed and the alarm goes off and you really want to snooze. You just go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get up. And like, you just get moving. And as soon as you start moving, your brain is it's this like trick you play on yourself. And it actually works when you're like, I don't want to clean up the dishes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's just go.
Right, doing it.
But so
it is like a little countdown as a way of giving yourself a little bit of a boost. I mean, you can think about other ways that you can really give yourself a boost too, like whether it's playing music or choosing somebody to do the task with you that you enjoy being with, or how can you look at it from a different perspective so it can become a little bit more fun? Or if not fun, a little more bearable, we'll say.
Yeah. And I think it's important for so many of us who are, we ventured out, we're doing our own business, is to also remember just how lucky we are. And it's such a privilege to have the opportunity to have our own businesses. And I know sometimes it doesn't feel that way because of the stress and everything that goes with it, but it truly is a blessing. And so kind of keeping that in mind, that this is a choice. And so you've chosen this, make it the best that you can, is important. So
there's a reason they call it work, because the people who say do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, that's a lie.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I do what I love every day, but there are days where it is work, right? Where there is a lot going on and I'm stressed out. It's still work. So I think it's those ideas that have been planted in our minds that, well, if I'm doing what I love, I'm going to love every single day. And it's not necessarily that you're going to love every single part of running your business, because there are parts you're not going to enjoy. We can't enjoy everything. So how do I make it so that this is more enjoyable? So it feels a little bit easier. And that's what it's really all about. And then focus your time on the things you really do want to do, the important tasks, the ones that you are excited about.
Sounds like we all need a marble jar.
We do, and not to smash it.
Or like gold stickers, gold stars. So Tonya, I know you have a lot of like tools and resources that folks can implement or utilize in order to create these structures and these priority lists and automations and stuff. So can you introduce us to some of those that people can check out?
Absolutely. So first of all, I do have a podcast called Productivity Paradox, where we talk all about productivity. I mean, I have a whole season focused on systems. Right now, the season that I'm in, we're talking about how you can accomplish big goals and dreams, because I'm excited about us getting to the end of the year where everyone starts goal setting. That's a great resource because I give a lot of actionable tips and downloads and things like that to really help you get started feeling a little more productive. And then, of course, I have planners and all kinds of productivity tools. I mentioned the notepad. The priority list that I mentioned to you is an integral part of my daily planner. so that it really becomes easier to create a priority list and you do know where to start. And then I have, of course, weekly planners as well. And all of my planners do come with a series of setup videos. For me, when I talk about my mission, one of the big foundational parts of my mission statement is education. So to me, it was not enough just to sell people a planner and say, okay, see you next year. I really want people to understand how they can use the planner and how they can create a system for themselves that works with their own lives. So when you buy one of the planners, it does come with a series of 6 setup videos that walk you through what are your priorities? How do you set your goals? How do you make these mini goals? How do you bank up your time and all kinds of things like that? So those come with all the planners, and you can find those at inkwellpress.com.
Love it. And one thing, we talked about it a little bit, is to invite people into your goal setting and have that conversation. My husband and I, we sit down and we put together kind of our goals for the year as a family and personally. And so he knows what I want to accomplish this year, and I know what he wants to accomplish, so we support each other. And I think the same is true for if you have a team, let them know what what the company values are, but also, what your goals are. So you guys are all on the same page. And so maybe they all should just get your planners, get all the planners and pass them out.
That's right. But no, I love that you do that with your husband. Every Sunday, I sit down with my husband. We plan our weeks together just for that very reason, that I want my kids to know when I am going through a tough time that they can support me, and that empowers them to feel more like they're part of the team. And then I know what's going on with them at school, so I can support them. And we all work together to support one another. There's a lot to be said for that support system. And when you do that and you rely on other people, that really helps them feel like they're a part of what you're creating. There are so many solopreneurs who feel so alone. And if you bring other people into your tribe to help support you, they become a part of that, and it's not so lonely.
Yeah. So good. I love it. Well, I see that we've been talking for a long time, as we usually do. And I honestly, you're like my productivity soul sister. I could seriously talk to you all day. But I want to wrap this up with the question I ask all of my guests, which is, the one thing I know for sure is, and I ask you to fill in the blank.
One thing I know for sure is that when you live a life centered around your priorities, that is a life that makes you happy, and that's a life that you will love.
I love it. Well said, as always, Tonya. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun talking.
There you go, my friend. If you'd like to learn more about Tonya, you can head on over to inkwellpress.com, or you can always learn more about her and the products and resources she mentioned over in the show notes. The show notes are available at AnnetteStepanian.com/podcast/62. Okay, my friend, that wraps up another episode. I hope you have a beautiful and productive day full of marbles in your jar, and I will talk to you next week when we come back with a Legal Quickie episode.